and timely theme of looking at how international exposure with other institutions which have a lot of excellence and experience in higher education can benefit the higher education sector of the state. You already have a day of proceedings with you. You have reached a particular point of deliberations, and I'm told, and the media informs me that you had a very fruitful day yesterday. So today we are moving on to a very crucial area of quality assurance in higher education, and we have precisely like an hour and 50 minutes with us to discuss it. I'm sure that all of you in this room will have a lot of ideas to supplement the panelists. I don't want to really stand between you and the panelists, so we'll get cracking with the business right away. So if you agree with me, we would go in the order of the speakers as they have been announced. I would like to welcome the entire panel of speakers. Dr. Stella, she's Commissioner of Academic Accreditation in the United Arab Emirates, long experience in accreditation. Professor Barthelemy, all the way from Sciences Po, welcome. And of course, the very well-known Professor Jnanam, who has been in the sector for probably more than 30 years now in university. You cannot think of a more august panel which can deliberate the issue. I can merely request the panel to restrict to 15 minutes person. Probably the organizers would warn you if you are exceeding beyond. And then keep probably half an hour or more for deliberations with the distinguished House. I'll join you during the deliberations if you permit me, because we are all ears to listen to the panel. So may I welcome Professor Stella Anthony Stella to commence with the proceeding.
Quality assurance. Good morning to all of you. I'm really pleased that I got this opportunity to listen to the interactive sessions yesterday. It was really wonderful. So let me join the other speakers who have already mentioned about the timeliness of this program. Let me join them in congratulating the Kerala State Higher Education Council for organizing this event. Especially for this session, the questions that have been listed under the guidance paper, that's really sharp. So I'll take the next 10 to 15 minutes to present my views on 7 aspects that have been listed under global and national issues. By now, all of us know that transnational education can take many different forms and it has many different rationales. So to address the first question of managing and measuring quality in branch campuses, it's very important to understand the rationale behind a particular transnational activity. We have some success stories. We hear about them very often, but there are also a lot of closures of branch campuses. There are projects that did not take off. These are the cases where there had been problems in understanding the rationale or in having a shared understanding between the home campus and the host country. If you look at the way the branch campuses have been increasing during the last decade, you would know that US is still leading the race, with countries like Australia, UK, France, and India gaining significant momentum nowadays. If you look at the host countries, it is the United Arab Emirates that hosts more than 1/4 of the international campuses, branch campuses in the whole world. So even in this country that has developed a specific strategy with adequate funding to develop and support branch campuses, even this country had projects that did not take off. So let me highlight just 1 or 2 examples where the rationale has gone wrong, and I'm trying to highlight this mainly from the point of view of how we have to look at it to assess the quality. Among the various emirates, it is the Emirate of Abu Dhabi that has a very strategic direction about inviting only the best institutions to open a campus or to offer a program in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. The Abu Dhabi Education Council, ADEC, has a very rigorous assessment process to assess the applications or to identify the institution that will be invited to offer a program in Abu Dhabi. And after a lot of discussions and very serious deliberations, Yale University was identified and it was invited, and the government agreed to put in a very significant amount. To a large extent, it would even amount to saying that Yale University didn't actually have any financial implication at all. It didn't have to worry about any financial implication. It was almost to that extent. But in spite of that, although there was a good vibe between the two partners, there was a good understanding about the rationale, and Abu Dhabi Emirate identified 3 areas, including architecture, for Yale University to offer programs. But after 1.5 years of serious discussions and deliberations, the senior management of the Yale University decided that to meet the expectations of the government of Abu Dhabi, Yale University did not have adequate support for the faculty. They couldn't afford to send so many faculty to run the programs. They didn't have so much time that this type of arrangement would require. So it sends us a very strong signal. Commitment and the understanding about the expectations of the two parties, that's very important. So from that point of view, although Abu Dhabi was willing to put in all the money, the decision that was taken by the Yale University, considering the faculty time, the resources it required for its own campus, that's a very responsible decision. Another example of a campus closure, George Mason University. It had a campus in another emirate, Ras Al Khaimah. After 2 years, it had to close its operation because there was a lack of understanding in the financial arrangements and the money that the local partner was supposed to put into that arrangement. So it's not there anymore. New South Wales University from Australia, it had a campus in Singapore. You all read about it 2 years ago, about the decision to close down the campus. The university had more than 600 students, but still it was not viable because the type of programs it was offering, it was just a clone of what was happening in Australia, and for various reasons, the senior management of the university decided that that was a big commitment for them. Bond University, one of the private universities in Australia, it had a good program in South Africa. It had a campus. For various reasons, it realized that it had to focus more on bringing students into its campus instead of offering a program in another country. It had to close its programs. So behind each one of these closures, there is a different signal. Is it important to you? Do you really want to be in that country? Or are you contributing significantly to that country? And what is the way the receiving country is going to work with you? There are also very positive examples. Again, from Australia, Monash University, it still has a successful campus in South Africa. When that campus was audited, I was an audit director at the Australian University's Quality Agency. It was a joint audit. We worked with the Quality Assurance Agency of South Africa. There was a joint panel, one self-study, one review, one report. It was a wonderful exercise, and we could really understand how important the South African campus was for the Monash University, although it was not making a big profit. In fact, the home campus in Australia was complaining. When we visited the home campus for the audit, the faculty members were complaining about how they had to share responsibilities when staff had to be sent to the South African campus, and students were complaining about the non-availability of teachers for a period of time when they had to spend time in South Africa. So it is, in spite of all that, the Vice Chancellor gave a very good explanation about the role of the South African campus in the strategic direction of the university, and there were very compelling reasons. And another positive example, the University City project of the South Australian government. Although many of us look at Australia as an exporter, it is also an importer. There are many foreign university campuses in Australia. There are universities that offer joint programs in Australia. For example, the Carnegie Mellon University, it has a campus. I've heard about another Indian institution, SP Jain, that had sent an application. I don't know what stage it is. And some other good examples, Swinburne University of Technology that operates in Malaysia, Curtin University of Science and Technology that operates in Malaysia, then Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology that has its campuses in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam. In each of these cases, Swinburne, Royal Melbourne, Curtin, it was the local governments that the national governments identified the areas of need for the higher education sector. They looked at the various institutions that could offer good programs. They had high-level discussions, invited those institutions, then those institutions came in, and there was a good understanding about what is it that the national government can provide as an incentive for inviting this university, and in what ways the national government can take part in the decision making and the policy making of the institution that's going to open the branch campus. For example, for the Sarawak campus of the Swinburne University, the local government has its representative in the governing body, and decisions are taken about some priorities and what new programs to offer, etc., in consultation with the government. The same thing about Curtin or MIT, etc. So these are the successful stories where the branch campuses work with the national governments, contribute to the capacity development of the country. So that's why I said, while we try to understand, when we try to measure the quality of these operations, it is important to see the specific rationale of the program. In general, when we talk about a transnational education, if we have in mind just offering programs, undergraduate and postgraduate programs, as clones of what's happening in the home campus, that's not going to contribute much in the growth of the country. But it can result in a number of other benefits like curriculum enrichment, collaborative research, faculty development, etc., but that is something that has to be made specific. So while measuring the quality of these campuses or these programs, when I was with the Australian Universities Quality Agency, we had a framework that has 17 points. So we call it 17 pointers. So it's, in a way, it is about parity in standards. In a way, it is about checking how equivalence is maintained in the way the programs are offered in the home campus and the way it is offered when education crosses the national borders. And these are the 17 areas where there are problems, there are possibilities of what's happening in the home campus not transferring across the national borders. So in the beginning, when we looked at some of the transnational programs, we could see that the academic, for example, the academic board, when it looks at the curriculum changes, the curriculum development, etc., there were a number of areas where a different standard was applied when it came to the transnational education program. And this different standard that did not have an educational perspective. It's not for educational reasons, but it may be the reason of convenience. It is not very convenient to have this educational component in Vietnam, therefore let us replace it with something very simple. It is not possible to expect this to happen in Malaysia, therefore we will replace it with this. And the academic board had a different view on this. And so if you look at some of the early reports of the Australian Universities Quality Agency, you will come across a lot of criticisms under the internationalization aspect. Transnational education was covered under internationalization. And as years passed, we could see that institutions learned out of this experience, learned from the various recommendations, and made a lot of improvements. So when we go to these programs, this is the first question we ask. What does it mean to you? In what ways is it important to your mission for your existence as a higher education institution? What are your strategic directions, and how much are you able to invest into this in terms of people's resource, in terms of money, etc.? And as we raised these questions, we came across some answers such as, it's very expensive to do it in Vietnam, therefore we had to dilute this. And you can't get faculty members to teach this in Malaysia, therefore we had to replace this. Then we had to, the assessors, the quality assurance team would say, that's not our problem. We want you to make sure that there is parity in academic standards. You took the decisions to offer the program there, and you should have the commitment to offer it in an equivalent way and maintain standards. So around 2005, we could see that many Australian universities started closing down some of these programs that are not viable if it has to be offered, if these programs are to be offered in a quality way. And in fact, before an audit team could visit the institution, we would see that a number of programs would reach the teach-out mode. So we used to make fun of that. Similarly, we started asking questions. These are the areas where problems come in. Entry standards of the students. Is it the same for the home campus as well as the branch campus or for any other partnership program? We found differences. For example, in Australia, a student has reached very high levels of English language competency for postgraduate programs, but these were quite lenient in a number of countries, partnership programs. So we had to ask a lot of questions about it. So that was an important one. Then faculty qualifications. So what's the research experience you need for faculty if it is an undergraduate program with a project component, or if it is a postgraduate program where students are expected to be inducted into research. Then we asked questions about student assessment. It's very rigorous in the home campuses in Australia. But we found some examples of very lenient assessment methodology in some of the partnership programs, and we had to ask questions about moderation. How do you know that the assessment process is similar? So let me summarize it in just one phrase: parity in standards, parity in campus experience, parity in student experience. So maintain the standards. So let me go to the next one very quickly. There is a question about who is responsible for quality assurance of branch campuses. In an ideal situation, it should be the responsibility of all the three people involved: the host country, the source country, and the home institution. But in practice, I know that there are difficulties. For example, for the past 10 years, through the various quality assurance networks, we have been talking about quality assurance agencies talking to each other so that they will share this information about the quality of the institutions and reduce the quality assurance load. I mentioned about the joint audit we had for the University of Monash, but it took a lot of our time. There was so much discussion that we had to do. We had video conferencing, we had teleconferencing, and there were visits. And so to agree on a common framework that will be useful to three parties is going to be very difficult. But in this world, the way the partnership arrangements are going on, being developed, it is very important to continue that dialogue. The International Network for Quality Assurance Agencies in Higher Education, it had a project on mutual recognition, where the idea was for quality assurance agencies trying to understand and accept each other's quality assurance decisions. For example, if the Commission for Academic Accreditation has confidence in the quality assurance decisions of the National Assessment and Accreditation Council of India, there is no need for the Indian campus in UAE to be assessed once again by the Commission for Academic Accreditation. But it should be possible for us to exchange information, and maybe if we need additional information, a desk review should be able to address our additional queries. But in reality, that does not happen. For example, when we audited the Carnegie Mellon University, only after reaching the campus, we realized that just a few months ago, the regional accreditation agency from US, the Middle States, had visited. We didn't know about it, but we were very good friends of the Middle States. We were really surprised that we were all talking in workshops about mutual recognition, but here is your colleague who had, and we were really surprised, and we were in fact a bit upset. But in the UAE, we write to the various quality assurance agencies that visit the country for some of these accreditation exercises. So we have a good relationship now. For example, when the Zayed University, one of the federal universities, was reviewed, we had one of our persons as an observer. And when the international accreditation groups come for the ABET accreditation, then we send an observer, etc. So what I'm trying to say is everyone has a role. But the problem seems to be in the fact that quality assurance agencies have been established differently. They're owned by different groups. They have different mandates, and it's very difficult to find a common platform so that we can say, this is what you will do, this is what you will do. It's becoming difficult, but we all have to make an effort towards it. The Asia Pacific Quality Network has a project on that, on mutual recognition. India was one of the participating countries, India, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and Hong Kong. So we worked together, but you will see that this combination is a very interesting combination. The quality assurance agency in New Zealand is owned by the universities. Whereas in Australia, it was funded by the states, territories, and the Commonwealth. And in India, it's a different situation. In Malaysia, the Malaysian Qualifications Authority has a different affiliation. So it is not possible for these, after working together for 2 years, we were able to say that now we have the confidence to say that we trust each other. And these are our differences, these are our similarities, but as professional colleagues, we trust each other. And we hope that this will help in future for the governments to think about some of the mutual recognition arrangements. Just a couple of points, if I can take just 2 more minutes. There is a question about whether transnational education can really be an answer to expand higher education. But Professor Jnanam is an expert on that, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I'll only say that in the present forms of transnational education, it cannot be a solution to address the problem we have in the country now. We have to think about different and more modern and new ways of doing it. Then there is a question about the virtual universities. There are good examples of the existing national quality assurance systems assessing virtual universities. It has been done before. The only point that the Quality Assurance Agency tries to incorporate is some of the unique aspects in managing the virtual teaching and learning method. For example, the Phoenix University, the Chicago-based Higher Education Learning Commission, it has already done it following a different methodology, although it was criticized. In Australia, when we looked at the University of Southern Queensland, which has more number of distance education students than the campus-based students, we were able to join the virtual mode of delivery as proxy students, and we could see how well the students are supported. We could even call the desk help and find out that one particular desk help was operating only from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. the Australian time, and then we gave them feedback that that's not a good practice. So there are many ways of doing it, and Korea and Japan have developed specific guidelines about assessing e-learning programs, and some of that is useful to this. UAE has an e-learning university, Hamdan bin Mohammed e-learning university, and just by adding a bit more emphasis to what is relevant in terms of technology update, faculty training, and student support, online support, etc., we follow the usual way of assessing them. So I think the national quality assurance agencies should be able to cover the virtual universities as well. I have already mentioned about some of the institutional changes offering a transnational program brings in. When we looked at the audit reports of the Australian Universities Quality Agency, we could see that only after running a program for 2 or 3 years, institutions realized that the quality assurance arrangements that were working for the home campus were not necessarily translating to the transnational programs. So institutions realized that they had to tighten all their policies and procedures and everything so that transnational education does not become an addendum, but it becomes a mainstream, and the difference is only in the way it is offered. It's a different mode of delivery, and institutions realized that they need a separate portfolio. So that was when positions such as Pro Vice Chancellor, International Development, Pro Vice Chancellor, etc., all that started coming up. A division that had a specific attention to it, and the strategic direct plans of the institutions underwent revisions, and internationalization and transnational education became more explicit. The involvement of the high-level people, involvement of vice chancellors, deputy vice chancellors, all that became greater when institutions realized that transnational education cannot be simply left to people who manage the programs. It's not just about running a program, but it is about some high-level understanding. Institutions also realized that they have to reduce the role of the middleman, and it has to be managed with an education perspective. So these are some positive institutional changes that we saw in the Australian system as the quality assurance measures were tightened. I'm sure the same thing is applicable to other countries, but we need to have transnational education and measuring it as the mainstream of teaching and learning and as the mainstream of quality assurance. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to achieve the outcomes. There are a few other points which I will not highlight now, but if there are relevant questions, then I will use that opportunity to give you that information. Thank you very much.
Oh yes, I'm really also told about the cell phones, even if I heard some very nice rings, I think. Okay, my name is Yves Barthélemy. So I have a double hat. I'm a professor, associate professor in a French university. And the other hat is I'm consulting for mainly for United Nations Environment Program and other institutions, NGOs, and a bit for oil and gas companies in geoinformation. I'm really very pleased and honored to be here today. What I heard yesterday was really very interesting. I must say that I'm not a big expert in quality assurance in higher education. Murali had invited me also, I think, because I'm one of the only, if not the only one, French speaker and French today and during of this workshop, of the panel today and of the workshop. So I would like to bring also a bit of a French touch to this meeting, and I would like to present you a few things about French higher education, some of the main facts, because I don't know if you are that familiar with the French education system. Then I would like to talk about some of the challenges faced by French education today. And for sure, I can't resist to the MOOC, and I will have a few words on the MOOCs, even if I was not in the first day yesterday on to talk about MOOCs. And I will finish with a few set of comments. And I just mentioned that I spent some time before working for Spot Image, because I know that in Kerala you have an important space research center, and I used to work for the French space agency and Spot Image company. So let's talk about French education system. French education system is really a dual system, okay? So when here we are talking about universities, in France, in fact, we have universities, which is really a massive and open, let's say, university. We have 1.6 million students every year entering the system, and this is what we call the university. But at the same time, we have another system, what we call in France, grandes écoles. Okay, so I don't know how to translate that in English. I think it could be engineering schools, higher business and administration schools. And this is important to mention because at an international level, okay, universities are, for sure, some of them are well known, but the schools are also famous. So we are talking here about Polytechnic, we are talking about Sciences Po, we are talking about HEC, HEC, okay, for a business. And it's important also because there is, in France, a big disparity between the two systems. The first one, massive and open, free, or 200 euros per year fees. This is the universities. We have 100 universities for 1.6 million students. The other system, so the schools, is just 200,000 students, and we have 200 schools, okay? And, well, it can be from free to quite expensive. But it's important because it gives an idea also on the elitism of French education system. It is opened, yes, from one side, but all the people who will be at the command in the country at a later stage, politicians, business leaders, administration leaders, military leaders, are all coming from the very elitist system. All, I'm just maybe insisting a bit on this elitism, but most of them, okay? All the former presidents from France come from this system, apart maybe from Nicolas Sarkozy, who came from another system. When it comes to transnational education, so we are, I saw the last figures, we are upon 3.6 million students moving abroad internationally. We are in fourth rank in terms of welcoming students. So we are welcoming 250,000 students, which is very important for us. We are welcoming, for sure, because we know that we have passed, we are an ex-colonial country, and so we have many French-speaking countries, students coming in France, but we also have, the first country is Morocco, for example, but the second one is China, and it's increasing also. I was happy to see that Indian students are also coming in France, and we had this year 2,600 Indian students coming to France. So I hope it will continue and grow. Important fact on the transnational education is that they are representing, well, international students are representing 12% of our students, and very important, 42% of our PhDs, which shows also the importance for us and at a later stage of having a network of PhDs, international PhDs. What are the main challenges faced by France today? So I started to mention the elitism. So we have a lot of problems in France on that, okay? And people are trying we are trying to open much more these schools, grandes écoles system to, let's say, lower, because it's also a problem in France, only upper socioeconomic classes, or most of them, can attend these schools, okay? Meaning that it's a representativity problem in the end. So it's a problem, and well, some schools like Sciences Po are now welcoming, and there is a dedicated programs so that underrepresented minorities can enter the system also, which is important for future representativity. I don't know if this is new to all of you, but if you are facing the same problem, but French university, let's say, is a bit bankrupt and desperately looking for money, at least the university, the public university, okay? This is new to, no, not new to you?
We know you don't charge at all and it's very cheap out there.
So. Yes, it's quite cheap. Yeah, too. So it's a problem for us. And also because a new law, which is supposed to be in 2013 active, not active, but in place, is the financial independence of the universities, okay, which is really new to France, because for decades, universities have been really public and funded by government. And this is, and now all our universities, our 100 universities, have to are responsible for their funds. But I'm not sure that they have really enough funds, or they are discovering that it's very expensive to welcome so many students and to keep a high level of quality. So this is also new for us. Okay, here I'm really talking about public universities. We are not always used to talk to the private sector, which is maybe different than, I don't know, in the US education system, maybe Indian. And I don't know if you are familiar with the French strikes, but you know that each time something is moving in our universities and airport or whatever, we can face very important strikes. Okay, so university presidents are really moving carefully on this and slowly.